Welcome to Season 5 of eCommerce Fastlane. This podcast helps Shopify-powered brands to accelerate growth. And now, on to episode 238.
You're listening to eCommerce Fastlane, the podcast show to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company, powered by Shopify. Listen to real conversations with partners and subject matter experts as they share proven practical strategies, platforms, and the best Shopify apps to help you accelerate your business. The time is now for you to improve efficiencies, grow revenue, profit, and lifetime customer loyalty. Please welcome your host, startup founder and strategic advisor, Steve Hutt.
This episode is brought to you by Okendo, the preferred customer marketing solution for high-growth Shopify brands. Okendo is helping over 4,000 of the fastest-growing retailers, such as Kim Kardashian's underwear label Skims, Nomad, and Buck Mason to leverage their most powerful asset, their customers. Okendo gives brands all the tools they need to capture and showcase customer-generated content like product ratings and reviews, photos and videos, including Q&A. When you're looking to optimize your buyer's journey, increase the volume and the quality of user-generated content, build a flourishing customer community, or collect valuable first-party customer data, Okendo is here to help you. Okendo is your all-in-one customer command center where you can track, report on, and optimize every aspect of your customer marketing. But they also offer many seamless integrations with the tools that you already use and love, including Klaviyo, Google, and Zendesk, to name a few. Join thousands of Shopify retailers who already use Okendo to build shopper trust and excitement, showcasing customer experiences and compel buying action. Start your 14-day free trial today at okendo.io. That's okendo.io. Well, hey there, it's Steve Hutt, and welcome back to Season 5 of eCommerce Fastlane. Now, if this is your first time listening, this is an e-commerce show where we have honest and transparent conversations about building and thriving with your store powered by Shopify or Shopify Plus. Now, if you're an ambitious, lifelong learner, which you likely are since you're here today, you're definitely in the right place. Now, new episodes are available twice weekly with your favorite podcast players like Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, and many more. You can also stream current episodes, including a very relevant back catalog. I think we're up to 240 some episodes now. You can go directly to ecommercefastlane.com. There's some amazing partners there and a lot of problems that they're solving, platforms and issues and things, but they're all solving them with connections to Shopify. So that's at ecommercefastlane.com. In today's episode, my guest is Doug Ladden, who's the co-founder and CEO of a company called Deliveright. And what they are is a technology, logistics, and a final mile delivery provider for retailers that have heavy, kind of large and kind of oversized items. It's a very unique conversation today when I learned more about this particular platform. Doug grew up in New Jersey, not too far from New York City, and attended Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania. And, after college, Doug went to work on Wall Street in investment banking at Donaldson, Lufkin, and Jenrette, and was co-founder of its mezzanine investing business, which grew to $3.6 billion in assets under management. As an active investor, he sat on multiple board of directors for companies including TransCore, a leader in electronic toll collection systems, and digital load boards at truck stops. It's very interesting. After 25 years of investing, Doug and his co-founder, Ori Anavim, with a technology backstory, started building Deliveright. Through its patented Grasshopper platform, Deliveright offers a complete tech solution to heavy good delivery companies and a complete logistics solution for retailers. And this is the Shopify connection we're going to learn a lot about today. Deliveright's nationwide network of carriers and delivery hub powers the entire logistics supply chain of some of the largest e-tailers, all the way through from the manufacturer's dock through to the customer's home. So just think of these white glove delivery. Deliveright simplifies the complex logistics for heavy goods shipping and provides a competitive advantage for its customers that are on Shopify. Retailers that sell merchandise such as furniture and exercise equipment through Shopify really can now select Deliveright to seamlessly manage logistics and the final last mile deliveries to customers' house anywhere in the USA. And with the app, shippers can use instant delivery quotes to turn delivery service into a profit center, meaning you don't necessarily have to lose money on the delivery. You could potentially make money on this delivery and at least give the customer some options, and offer the service levels ranging from curbside to full white glove delivery, meaning bring it right into your home, setting things up, box and packaging back on the truck, and out you go. The app now currently integrates directly into their platform. We're going to learn a lot about this new connection to Shopify. This one thing about this podcast, I always like to get the most innovative and new platforms that connect to Shopify that are solving unique problems. I know for a fact that there's lots and lots, hundreds, if not thousands of brands that have large and heavy items that unfortunately they're not available for e-commerce purchase come into my store, or they're only wholesaling it to somebody else who can do it. And so there's got to be a way of direct to consumer to get these large and oversized and heavy items into your customers' homes or businesses. And that's what Deliveright can do. So hi, Doug. Welcome to eCommerce Fastlane.
Thanks very much, Steve. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. And, I mentioned a bit, I've done a tiny bit of research. Appreciate maybe a little bit of this intro that I have here, but I think it's always more impactful when I actually hear it from the founder on the platform that you're actually building. So let's talk first on a high level about Deliveright. I generally understand the concept of what you're building and how you're helping these oversized and large items be delivered, which typically couldn't be. And so maybe you can unpack that a bit about maybe in Shopify's world, like what does this all mean now?
Sure. Happy to do it. The trend towards selling goods online has been going on for quite some time now, as we all know. The trend to sell heavy goods online has lagged behind the overall trend, however. And one key reason why it's lagged behind is that it's very hard to deliver heavy goods. And if you think about, the typical e-commerce site or the typical retailer who has a Shopify site who wants to plug into FedEx or UPS, I don't want to diminish it and say it's very simple to do, but there's a way to do it. There's a way to get deliveries made, all over the US, in fact, all over the world, and it's easy to plug into it. For heavy goods, there isn't an option like that. And so finding the right way to get heavy goods moved from the manufacturer's dock all the way through to a final mile delivery hub and then delivered by a qualified two-man team into the customer's home, that takes a lot of legwork. That takes a lot of relationship building. And it also takes a lot of technology. And that's really why we started Deliveright. We wanted to make it possible for websites and designers and retailers who sell online to get their merchandise moved in a quality way all the way through to the customer's home and get a final mile delivery done that you can be proud of. And fortunately, the time that we spent building it and the technology that we've built, it really stood the test of time. And today we think of ourselves as being the best delivery logistics technology provider in the industry.
And not to mention a brand new Shopify app. And that's the reasons why I have you on today, because, there are no reviews yet because it's a brand new app in the Shopify app store. And I'll make sure all these links go in the show notes at the end of kind of how to learn more about all of this. But what's interesting is about the origin story. And we mentioned there's a co-founder, Ori, and I'd love to maybe unpack that a bit and just talk about how all the pieces came together. You two, maybe the rest of the founding team, like where did the desire and the expertise come from to even want to create this platform?
Building something like this takes a lot of people and a lot of time. And fortunately, Ori and I have known each other for 10 plus years, and we also were linked up with some operations people who had real expertise in final mile as well as first mile logistics. And when we started just having casual conversations before we ever thought about starting Deliveright, we were always interested in figuring out what was happening in the world of e-commerce. And as we talked more about it over time, we saw heavy goods being an area of e-commerce that really wasn't getting any traction with, say, the FedExes and UPSs of the world. And I knew from my investment background that building something like this was going to take a lot of expertise that I didn't have. And, Ori's background is one of technology development. He's built huge platforms for large Wall Street banks. And we knew that if he could build something with a team of 50 developers to track every foreign currency trade made by a large investment bank all around the country, he'd be able to develop the technology platform for what you needed to track heavy goods. So then when you get to the FedEx and UPS world, they're great at shipping parcel size objects. You want to ship a toaster, you want to ship a nutritional supplement, you want to ship an iPhone, you're not going to do better than the FedEx UPS world. And I guess I should mention Amazon because I assume they would want to be mentioned there. But the reality is in heavy goods world, it's a much different process. You can't put a sofa onto sortation equipment that's running at, 30,000 pieces per hour. Like you can't have one person who drives a FedEx truck walk into a home and carry a large sofa or a dining table and carry it upstairs and then assemble it for you. That's just not the business that they're in. And so we really saw a need for this. And interestingly, the delivery companies who specialize in heavy goods, there's thousands of them. And there are thousands of them out there. They're mom and pop companies. They're mid-sized companies. Some of them do fantastic work. They've grown up working for designers and they have very exacting standards that their customers impose on them. And so there's a lot of quality delivery service out there, but there's very little technology. And so we said, in order to make this really work, you have to empower the delivery companies with technology. And then you have to connect them to the e-commerce world. And then that way you have, say, retailers on Shopify who are now selling product all over the country instead of their local trading market. And now they know that they can get their merchandise delivered by a quality delivery firm into a customer's home all the way across the country. It's a very powerful platform to make a local retail store function like it's a nationwide player.
Yeah. Wow. This is phenomenal. I really feel that there are many Shopify brand founders and marketers that are listening right now that they're in that exact position where unfortunately they're choosing to not have their full product catalog available online because they know they can't ship it. They don't really have the infrastructure to do it. And now, as of today's recording, that is a complete reality that it is available. I even look at Amazon, for example, and even Amazon has a lot of challenges with even large items. I know they have some kind of Amazon hub kind of opportunity available. I know they have their lockers and there's all different things, but at the end of the day, I think these large, heavy items are just not even available as a fulfillment by Amazon kind of opportunity. I think especially things that are over ultra heavy items that are over 300 pounds that they can't even fit through a door. Like they just think it's some large thing. I just don't know what other people do, but now it sounds like you've got the solution for these larger items. You're able to get them in. You made comments about the final mile versus the first mile too. Maybe let's talk about that first. What is the final mile? Because I think there's two different things. There's first mile and there's the final mile, right?
Yes. And if you want to get technical, you could also say there's a middle mile. Once you get into the nitty gritty of an industry, there's a lot that you learn. And in this case, you can break it down pretty simply. So merchandise is sitting at the manufacturer's building, in their warehouse. The retailer sells it to a customer. And as is typical in e-commerce, the retailer hasn't really bought it yet. They just have the right to sell that on their website. So now that a customer is interested and wants to buy it from the retailer, now the retailer is going to place the order with the manufacturer. So it's not sitting in the retailer's store or warehouse. It's sitting at the manufacturer's dock. So getting it picked up from the manufacturer, well, that's the first mile. And then from that truck that picks it up is going to bring the item to another warehouse. And that's going to be a warehouse where items from a lot of different orders are combined, and all the orders that are going from, let's say this order started in California, all the items that are going to go from California to Miami are loaded onto a truck. So you can get a California to Miami middle mile truck that's going to handle that leg of the journey. And then once it gets to Miami, well, now you're at the final mile. And you're going to have a delivery partner make that delivery from their warehouse in Miami to the customer's home, wherever that may be in the local area. And so if you think about being a retailer, and trying to do that all on your own, well, there's tens of thousands of permutations when you think about all the different places where merchandise can get picked up from and then, brought to final mile hubs. And then there's millions and hundreds of millions when you think about, well, the customers that you're going to be delivering to. So it really breaks down very quickly as to trying to do this on your own if you're selling heavy goods. And my favorite story is we work with a company who told us they had 27 different final mile companies that they worked with around the country. And that was the way they were able to get deliveries made all over the US. And when you think about what that means is, let's just say they were walking through their order book and trying to track orders to 100 different customers. Well, it's possible that they'd have to look at 27 different customer service platforms to figure out where all their orders were, or they'd have to call 27 different, customer service numbers to figure out where their orders are. Like, it's completely unmanageable, completely unworkable. And so with the Deliveright solution, you're calling Deliveright, or you're going to Deliveright's site and you're tracking your merchandise from, California all the way through to Miami. It's critical that, we did all this legwork behind the scenes, integrating with carriers and integrating with the delivery companies. And in fact, every delivery hub is running on our technology platform, which is called Grasshopper. And so every single delivery that's made in the network is going to be documented the same way. It's going to be performed the same way because everyone's using the exact same procedures.
Now, how does international commerce fit into this equation? Because the reason I bring it up is because a couple of years back, I purchased some patio equipment and a couple new chairs, a fire table, and a few things. These are all large items. I don't own a pickup truck. Part of the deal was some of the items I saw in their showroom. The other items they showed in a catalog, and they weren't going to sell the items off the floor anyways. And they did have their own warehouse of some items, but they didn't want to get oversold on them. So they said, every week to 2 weeks, depending on how busy we are, we have a truck coming up from California. I'm in Canada, Vancouver in British Columbia. I'm just using like a real world example. This might resonate with somebody that's listening today that has a Shopify store that sells goods, and they wouldn't mind having a Canadian retailer or other retailer getting access to the stock. But it sounds like the process that's happening is the first mile, the pickup, is that this company is obviously making a purchase from the manufacturer physically in California, and they want it in Canada. So it looks like the first mile company is making a decision, or they're paying for, or the carrier they're working with is filling up a transport truck full of all of their orders for the week or two, and on it comes up into quote unquote their warehouse or someone's warehouse. And then from there, I guess it gets more convoluted a bit, because how did it cross the border? What's going on with duty and tax? Like, how is that all compliant from the first mile to the middle mile people? Like, how's that crossing over? And then the final mile would be, well, how did it get to my home? It didn't appear to be employees of the furniture company that I bought it from. It appeared to be other delivery type people that had all the equipment to be able to put this stuff together and lug it over my fence. And this is not the salespeople that were in the. So maybe you can kind of unpack that a bit about what's been happening in my particular example. And then how could that relate to maybe other Canadian merchants, or the other way around? Maybe you're a Canadian manufacturer with your site and you want to start selling to American consumers. Is there some possibility across borders?
It's a very good question, because it is so difficult to get through the borders today. And in fact, what I'll tell you is today we can work with Canadian companies to deliver product within Canada, to another place in Canada. We can work with US companies to do, or Canadian companies to move merchandise from the US to the US, but we can't actually get it across the border today. We're not yet able to do that. And that is actually a different skill set. So the ability to pass through customs and manage that process is a specialized niche that I'd say we will add at some point, but there hasn't been the need for it to date. So I think if you could convince more of your neighbors to order more patio furniture, it'll become more of a pressing issue.
Yeah.
But seriously, there are so many Canadian companies who have customers in the US, and they're really moving most of the merchandise from California or from North Carolina in the furniture industry to, all points within the US. That's something that we do every day. And we can also work with Canadian companies or American companies who are selling to Canadian consumers as long as the merchandise starts in Canada and remains in Canada.
So let's talk a bit about supply chain. I know it's one of the topics that comes up quite a bit. We've seen all the photos of how many container ships are off the ports right now. I mean, just in Vancouver alone, it's ridiculous. And then you look off the ports in LA, it's worrisome when you see how backed up they all are. And that's just having a chain reaction of very few longshoremen to take these containers off and the whole thing. Like, it's just turning into a big old cluster right now. And no wonder, and I even read an article a couple weeks back about just the cost of one container now and how much it's gone up in price. All COVID related, all related to a lot of things doing with demand and less workers and pandemic and all this stuff. Maybe because you're like boots on the ground here about what's actually going on in the supply chain, because you're moving lots of goods through all these different miles. So can you let us know from your perspective, like what is actually going on today? This is this is going to be out in April of 2022. So like, what are you seeing and what sort of information do you need to share today?
Sure. It's really been difficult to live through and fascinating to watch. The shutdown that originally occurred due to COVID, it was so sudden. And it was so massive, it was shocking to people. And what we saw was that the websites basically stopped getting orders for some period of time when COVID began because nobody knew what was going to happen next. Everyone just stopped and watched the news. After about 6 weeks, you go back to March of 2020, after about 6 weeks, people were saying, I'm working from home. And I need a desk. I need a home office setup. I can't keep working on my bed or on my couch.
Yeah, on an ironing board.
Yeah, exactly. You had people who were saying, I've been thinking about getting a new couch for 5 years. I'm sick of looking at this. I got to get a new couch. So literally after about 6 weeks, the volume started to pick up for the e-commerce sites. And we started to see a huge pickup in booked orders. And then because the manufacturers had all been shut down in Asia, what happened was, a lot of ships ended up canceling their sailings. They blanked their sailings because they weren't going to have any containers on them. And so now you had fewer ships moving across the ocean and you had nothing to ship anyway. And then you had this massive influx of orders from consumers who said, no, I actually need a lot of things. And so all of a sudden, the manufacturers try to turn on the gas and they're making product as quickly as they can. And there's a shortage of containers. And then there's a shortage of container ships. And then they finally get their merchandise on a container ship. And the cost of getting that container moved has gotten from $4,000 to $40,000 for the journey. And now the ship won't get unloaded on the West Coast. And so it's sitting there and just waiting. And so you saw incredible pressure on the supply chain. And by the way, if you look at consumer durable orders, the increase in those orders went from about 1.5 trillion to about $2.1 trillion between 2020 and 2021, which is a $600 billion increase in durable goods, which a lot of those goods are going to be heavy goods. So you have this 40% increase in durable goods orders. How are you going to get those products moved? You've got fewer ships and fewer containers available. So it's incredible how much stress has been placed on the industry. That being said, people are catching up. The ports in California shifted to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week schedules. There's been real efforts made to catch up. And one of the nice things that's happened as a result of all this is, people are paying more attention to supply chain and logistics. People are actually starting to care about it. I've been interested in it for quite some time, but it's much more in the common vernacular now for people to talk about what's happening in the supply chain. And the good news is it is getting better. The bad news is, things can be bad and still getting better at the same time, right? It doesn't mean that just because things are getting better, they're all back to normal, but it is better.
Wow. It's so interesting because I know when I tried to buy a piano for my son, it was a Yamaha piano, digital piano, and go to the retailer in my city. And he said, we have the floor model and that's it, which is in great condition. You can take that one. It was for Christmas 2 years ago. I said, well, how about I get a new one? He says, to be honest with you, we're in the middle of COVID right now. The Indonesian factory, they're not sending anything right now. And it's 18 months. I'll place an order. It's 18 months. You'll get it. Like they already know that. And I think those sort of challenges slowly are starting to get better. So I'm starting to get a good knowledge here of kind of what you do and what Deliveright is all about, because I want to start digging in a little bit into the Shopify world and how you're specifically helping there. But let's talk about your technology a bit first. You mentioned the word Grasshopper, which I guess is the technology or the name of the technology that powers like all these systems. Deliveright is the company. Grasshopper is the technology, I guess, so to speak. And so maybe can you talk a little bit about that? I know the problems you're solving, but let's just make sure we understand about the technology. And then maybe let's pivot a bit over into the Shopify app and how that works.
Sure. The Grasshopper platform that we've built, it powers everything that we do, everything that Deliveright does. And in fact, when you click on the Deliveright app in the Shopify store, you're choosing the Deliveright app. What you're really doing is linking to Grasshopper behind the scenes. And so what's great about the linkage between Shopify or a Shopify retailer and Grasshopper is that it's seamless. Once you've made that link, what happens is you book an order with a customer, you get information from the Shopify, the Deliveright app in Shopify. You know exactly how much that delivery is going to cost you as a retailer. And then you can set your final price with the customer. You can say that you're offering free delivery. You can mark up our delivery. You can do whatever you want. You've got total control. This becomes a new option for the retailer. And because of our technology background and because of the relationships we've built throughout the first mile and the middle mile and the final mile, as we've discussed before, we can really give an ironclad price quote. The retailer knows exactly how much this delivery is going to cost them. And then they can then set their pricing with their customer. So it all happens in real time, which is phenomenal. There's a phone call that has to be made or a fax that has to be sent. It's nothing like that. It's the 21st century, right? So you know in real time how much the delivery is going to cost. And you don't even have to worry about how it's going to get picked up. You'll get the ability to track that shipment from the time the order is made, and your customer will have a tracking link as well. And that's all done, through the Grasshopper platform.
That's really interesting. And then the pricing side, I guess in Shopify, you could give a customer some different options. If they're a retailer in a certain city, let's say they're in Miami and they're a furniture retailer and they'd have a pickup truck and they want to come and pick it up. They could probably make a purchase online and then, there'll be some kind of a schedule to go to the warehouse and book an appointment, maybe a phone number on the order confirmation page to book an appointment to go pick it up. Okay, fair enough. But for the rest of the people, then I guess there could be an option as part of the checkout flow. The merchant, I guess dynamically, you're able to reveal what the shipping costs are going to be to the customer that lives in Seattle, let's say, so to speak. And so is there some legwork that a brand needs to do ahead of time about the dimensional weight, the physical weight? I'm just trying to understand how the prices get to be set kind of pre-going live with Deliveright.
What I would encourage anyone to do who's interested in working with Deliveright is to do the following. If you know you're shipping something unusual, like, an outdoor sauna, which might take 8 people to deliver, I would contact us. You can open an account in 5 minutes, but you got to contact us to explain the specialized nature of the product. And then we can figure out the specialized nature of the handling. For, like you mentioned, getting your son a Yamaha, shipping something like that would be no problem. That's pretty much in the wheelhouse of standard furniture size objects. But if somebody's shipping telephone poles, well, that's obviously a much different conversation. We'd have to do some specialized work for that. That is both heavy and bulky. And I think the retailer knows if they're selling something that's a more standard size, heavy, bulky object or a very specialized one. And so in the typical situation, people are shipping, typical objects. For that kind of shipment, the pricing is built in. We're ready to go.
Mm-hmm. This is lovely. So I want to pivot into a story right now. I feel very motivated, and I know my listeners do too, and they kind of put themselves kind of in the shoes of, of the story being told. There's founders, we have entrepreneurs and marketers, lots of people listen each week, and I think there's a lot of education or some inspiration that can come out of a story, and I hope I don't put you on the spot here, but I wonder if you could share maybe a recent journey. It'd be great if it was a Shopify brand. They've implemented the Deliveright solution. I'm going to call it the Grasshopper solution. They're connected to it, and I just would love to understand how do they find you, and how did you implement the solution? Was it through the app? Was it more of a direct connection that you just kind of like early adopters? And then what was the outcomes on the other side of having this technology available to customers that require these kind of larger items to be delivered to their home and have this white glove service?
For the typical customer, right? And we work with hundreds of websites. So the thought that someone is going to entrust some company they've never heard of with a heavy goods delivery, somewhere else in the US that, they don't ever get to actually see the delivery themselves, it's a very daunting thought. But here's what happens. When you work with designers and you work with websites and you've done hundreds of thousands, 1 million deliveries, you develop a lot of very good processes and procedures and technology. And in our case, we've been able to work with customers, and there are many Shopify customers who are now working with us, even though it's relatively new. And the way most people find out about Deliveright is through word of mouth. It is very much the case that word of mouth is the best source of new business, and it usually carries a lot of trust with it. And so, that is so much more effective than us putting out an ad in the paper and saying, hey, we're so wonderful, or buying banner or legends. We've been able to build our brand on successes with the online community. And so if you think about Shopify names, you'll see things like, Starfire Direct and I for Pretty, James Per Se. There are brands like that that have already started to work with Deliveright. What you typically find when a company starts to work with Deliveright is there's a learning curve to figure out, okay, how exactly do we book orders? How exactly do we attach to your API? How do we actually send order information? But very quickly, what happens is we start to get phone calls from our customers saying, hey, we're noticing that we're not getting as many phone calls as we used to get. Are you guys getting a lot of phone calls? What's going on? And just the fact that you've empowered everybody with this tracking information, it changes the whole relationship that the retailer has with their customer. We could spend a lot of time talking about AI and how much how it figures out the best route for this merchandise and how it figures out the best price and the timing and, whether an SKU is subject to damage more often than another one. We could be very boring and very technical. The bottom line is, it's incredibly powerful to our customers because they suddenly find they have far fewer customer issues to deal with. If you look up delivery services online and you focus on heavy goods, you will find very few highly rated companies. And I would argue that the one that has the best ratings is Deliveright.
It's amazing. I've just gone to a couple of those retailers you mentioned, this Starfire Direct. They're more like a fire pit and barbecue-y kind of a place. Large, heavy items, very interesting. I'm kind of following along. Even James Purse, for sure, I went to. He sells surfboards. It's a men's fashion retailer, men's and women's, but out of LA. And it's interesting, but they have, some interesting things. And like one is like, an 8-foot surfboard. Well, it's really not going to be delivered by your general purpose. And it's just like, it has a little star there and says oversized shipping rates apply to this board. And so that's obviously where your technology is fitting into the mix now, when they understand, where is this board right now physically and where does it need to go, and then give the customer the option. And the option is that, there's already been a conversation with Deliveright about, well, James, you want to deliver surfboards to people? Okay. Just so you know, we understand the box that it's coming in. That I guess these conversations by SKU have been discussed already. If it's an outlier case, I don't know with the surfboard, but once we have dimensional weight and sizes, and then I guess from there, just the price is the price. There's the wholesale price that you're offering, to the retailer. And then just James Purse has to make a decision about, well, what's the final price going to be for the consumer? A break even or plus a percentage point to make it go smooth, having just extra level of service required for delivery. So it's very cool that this is available. So
yeah, no, and I'm glad you mentioned that because, things like fire pits, things like surfboards or paddle boards or kayaks, there's a ton. Even fishing rods are hard to ship. Right? Because they're not heavy at all, but they're very big.
They are.
They don't fit on sortation equipment. So there are many different products that you could actually work on for a solution that Grasshopper and Deliveright solution can solve, because they just aren't conventional products. And, if I were a retailer, I'd be upset that no one has figured out how to get heavy goods delivered all around the country yet. I'd say, I'm sorry we're late, but we figured it out.
Yeah, no, it's fabulous. I'm excited the fact that you also have a great post-purchase experience, because I think that's what the customer service agents get really irritated and the brand owners get irritated on, because the number one question people ask, do you have a return policy and where's my product? And if you don't have a great post-purchase experience with some consistent follow-up or a dedicated landing page of where to go, it's so interesting where that needs to be there. And then you have that ability with a custom link with the tracking number. It's going to a Grasshopper landing page of like, where's my order right now in the whole flow from pickup through to the final white glove, if that's the service level that they've chosen.
And look, you mentioned return. It's a vexing issue in general.
That's a can of worms, yes.
Yeah, parcel and heavy goods. In the heavy goods world, it's more serious. A lot of times you'll find retailers who said, the damage that product is likely to sustain on the return journey really isn't worth it. So I'd rather just, cut my losses here. You see that happen frequently. And it's because there isn't a great reverse logistics solution. It is 100% better when you're working with a company like Deliveright and our technology, because we can actually predict damages that are likely to happen and we can minimize those. And when return has to happen, we can manage it more efficiently than someone who's just handling a small volume of freight.
That opens up one more can of worms too, while we're on the returns train. What happens with insurance claims of either lost, stolen, damaged? I mean, I don't know if it's delivered by a human. They're not going to leave on the doorstep when it's a white glove. Are there any insurance claims? And as a vendor or like a retailer that makes a decision, yes, I want some of these large items delivered direct to the customer, what happens along all of those miles from the manufacturer to the middle mile to the final mile if something happens physically? Either it gets stolen or it's damaged just at forklift, and who knows? A million things can happen. Like, what liabilities are available, or is that all inclusive as part of the service that Deliveright offers?
So there's definitely insurance coverage available on every order. What we can't do is ship something like fine art. We can't handle something that's a $3 million statue. It's got to be something that's a typical heavy good or item. But there is insurance available on every order that we process. There's a base level, and then there's extra insurance that someone can purchase. And what you really find is, over time, the products that have the most trouble likely are either improperly packaged or have unrealistic, handling needs. And what I mean by that is, glass and marble and I'll say delicate items. Sometimes it's just a more difficult product to ship, no matter who handles it. And there are some products that we've told retailers, look, we can't have you ship that with us any longer because the batting average on it is way too low. There are way too many problems with it. And so unless you can improve the packaging, or improve the design, you're going to have to find somebody else to handle this volume. And we work with retailers and with manufacturers all the time on discussing packaging. It's incredibly valuable because if you spend an extra $3 on your packaging, you can save yourself thousands of dollars in returns.
Thanks for that clarity. I just wanted to make sure I understood more about that. So we are nearing the end of the show for today. This has been like an incredible learnings for me. And I always joke on a lot of good episodes, but I've scrambled like 2 full pages of notes. I'm learning a lot. And I know that my listeners are feeling exactly the same way, that, we didn't realize the complexities that happen with large items and oversized and heavy items. But it's fantastic that there actually is technology now to actually do that. And it connects to Shopify. It's got all of this years of experience, connections behind it, and technology now too, which is like amazing. I'm curious about maybe the future. Now this Shopify app is launched, I'm starting to onboard more Shopify brands, starting with furniture companies likely first, likely going to get into a lot of the exercise equipment companies. And it's a blue ocean of opportunity for you. Definitely, I can see that. I'm curious if there's anything you can share about, what does the future look like? How are we going to continue to evolve where you're at today as it relates to connecting to Shopify? Or anything platform-wise that you're working, anything that just like to get warm and fuzzy about? Here's what I do today, and here's where publicly I can talk about our roadmap moving into the future.
Well, obviously, we've spent a lot of time talking about the past, and the future very much is of interest to us because we think we're building something that will enable retailers to compete for years to come. And the innovation that we're driving internally, the hunt for better solutions for people, for better service, better technology, better communication. It's ongoing. In the past year, we opened something like 450 new accounts. And, I'll bet 430 of them were people coming to us, accounts coming to Deliveright. We doubled our employee headcount. I think we'll probably do something similar over the next 12 months. We've got, multiple new dedicated freight lanes. And so, we were talking about the middle mile earlier. We have more lanes now where we will get our own trailer. It's dedicated strictly to Deliveright merchandise. And it's going from one city to another city. And in addition to being less expensive, you're also getting much faster service, right? Because now that truck doesn't have to make a LTL, less than truckload stops around the country. It's just going direct. We have plans to open many more hubs around the country. Everyone's trying to get closer to the customer. And, in the final mile delivery world, that's no exception, right? So having more locations will inevitably enable us to offer even quicker service to customers. And as you think about the Shopify platform, we're new and we've already seen new accounts opening from Shopify. We're really excited to see it. We're excited to see all the different product categories that are selling on Shopify that we hadn't even thought about before. Kitchen and bathroom cabinets. There's all kinds of product out there that we know is going to be compatible with our service, and which we know retailers are struggling with today, and we can really help.
It's really cool. I'll make sure this links up in the show notes with just this app and how you can get access to it. I'm looking right now at one image. It's so interesting where different shipping options of curbside to threshold service to room of choice and white glove service. As a retailer, you have a lot of options available for these oversized and large items. The level of service that you want to offer your customer, it's available, and the customer can choose the level of service they want. You want standard delivery? You got it. But you want curbside or white glove and you want us to build it, small extra fee, and we'll take care of that for you and take the packaging away. And so you're offering all of that level of service. I think that's pretty impressive. So
thank you. Yeah, look, we want to actually help retailers. I think Amazon has enough advantages on its own already.
Yes, that's true.
There are lots of good quality retailers out there, lots of good quality sites and designers who offer great value to their customers and really have great relationships with their customers, but they're missing this very important link in the logistics and final mile delivery. So we're trying to help everybody else.
Yeah. Another podcast, another day about the whole wholesale and B2B opportunity. I think that in itself is a massive opportunity. And I know there's lots of brands on Shopify that are doing the B2C. There's the direct to consumer kind of a thing. But man, it sounds like there's some opportunity for those, wholesale side of Shopify brands to think about, well, instead of the LTL option, is there a Deliveright option into pallet loads that's shrink wrapped and ready to go? And is that something that you can do? If a brand says, yes, I ship pallet loads of goods to my customers in wholesale, are you an affordable kind of a best-in-class solution for them?
So we're absolutely able to handle transactions like that. What I would tell you is, when you get into the palletized world, a lot of times that's a commodity service. And so you may find that it's loading something with a forklift onto a tractor trailer. One person's forklift is no better than somebody else's. And so with a lot of the heavy, bulky product that we ship, it tends to be product that you have to carry on, carry off by hand. We can also handle forklift product, but I would tell you that's more the exception to our transaction flow as opposed to the typical.
No can of worms opened, and thank you for that.
No, it's fine because it makes a lot of sense, and we could certainly do it. But I would tell you that for your Shopify listeners today, things that are unusual, not loaded on pallets, are bread and butter. If it's palletized, we can definitely have the conversation. We will not steer anybody wrong. If it's not right for us, we'll let you know.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to send people to deliveryright.com. I'll have that in the show notes. You can do a quick search in Shopify App Store and just type the word Deliveright in. You'll see the app. You can install that. So that's amazing. You have a great blog. There's a few press releases and things that I've read recently too. So I'm going to make sure I put all this in the show notes just to understand how you fit into the mix. It's so interesting. I know you did mention kind of in the green room before recording today, and understand that you would like, I guess, to share an offer for those listening today if they feel that, they are in this predicament right now of large items not able to be shipped to their end consumer, and you have the solution to that problem. And I guess you wanted to offer some kind of an incentive for them.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. We would be happy to offer people a 20% discount on their first 5 shipments with Deliveright, because we think that by the end of 5 shipments, you will have already seen the difference.
And it's worth an A/B test too, very quickly. Like I said, the first 5 shipments, have it available on your website, and slowly, one by one, track it and see the customer experience, and and do some kind of a post-purchase survey, like an NPS score or some kind of a CSAT score. There's something you can do post-purchase and follow those 5 deliveries along. Great customer service follow-up, saying, how was that delivery? Was it on time? Were they courteous? And so I think you'll see the answer is going to be yes all across the board, because that's what you do. This is your bread and butter. And so I think when you see that, I appreciate that discount. It's a really good, it's a good way of testing out the platform, and then say, okay, yes, this is for me, and then just continue on. I think it's a great opportunity, and thank you for offering that for our listeners today. So Doug, well, thanks again for coming on the show. Thank you for the full education of this. I know delivery and the kind of the post-purchase experience is really important. I also believe that having it available in Shopify now, like in the shopping cart, and having this level of service on the items, because I know there's going to be some items that just say call because they just don't have the shipping options available, and they're showing their full catalog, but it's call us. And that's, I think that adds a lot of friction. I think you take away a lot of that friction now by having the proper pricing based on level of service that's available in the city where it's going to, and customers can make their own decisions, both looks like domestically from within Canada and domestically from within the US. At some point, we'll figure out some international cross-bordery things into the future. I know it's a little challenging thing with duty and taxes and those sorts of compliance things, merchant of record and all that kind of stuff. But anyways, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your expertise and your vision, and congrats to you and the team for getting in the Shopify App Store now. And I wish you awesome success with this new platform.
Thanks very much, Stephen. Really appreciate the opportunity to share the story. And, I wish you nothing but the best for your Shopify community.
Beautiful. All right. Have yourself a great day.
You too.
Today's episode was brought to you by Okendo, the preferred customer marketing solution for high-growth Shopify brands. Okendo provides all the tools you need to leverage your most valuable asset, your customers, build shopper trust and excitement, showcase customer experiences, and compel buying action with a little help from Okendo. Start your free trial today at okendo.io. That's okendo.io. Well, that's it for today's episode. I'd like to thank you, a loyal listener of eCommerce Fastlane. It's my hope that this podcast is offering you a ton of value through growth strategies, tactics, and exclusive insider tips on the best Shopify apps and marketing platforms, all with my personal goal to help you build, launch, grow, and scale with Shopify. Thanks for investing some time today and listening to the show. I'm so proud and excited that you have a growth mindset and are a constant learner. I truly appreciate you and your entrepreneurial journey. Enjoy the rest of the week and keep thriving with Shopify.